want to speak any further because I want to introduce right away Bola Awoniyi. I'll try to pronounce the surname right.
Nice job.
Great. Bola is going to talk to us about Ballad, which is a news site in the UK, but very much also a membership and a community for Black British women. And he's going to tell us about how they got started and how they've faced the last year and what they had to adapt. Because a lot of it was around events and really creating the community. So we learn about how they either thought and went through the pandemic. Bola, over to you.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm just going to share my screen, something I think we're all used to hearing a bunch over the last over the last year. I hope you can all see my slides. But no, thank you very much for having me, and to Federica and the team, thank you so much for putting this together. So a bit of background on Ballad. Ballad uses media, community and data to empower Black women in Britain and beyond. We started as a free blog in 2014, creating content for Black women predominantly in Britain. And in 2016, we decided that actually, do you know what, we need to make some money. So let's look at this a different way. We decided we were going to do a membership platform. And so to get there, we did a crowdfund with our community, basically pre-selling memberships. And we were able to raise just over £12,000 from our community, which we used to build the membership platform that we have today. And so the Ballad membership is a freemium product creating content, events and lifestyle perks for Black women in Britain and beyond. Through the membership, we've gained thousands of paying members, tens of thousands of email subscribers, and we've collected hundreds of thousands of behavioral, attitudinal and psychographic consumer data points. And we're very much, looking to sort of build on the momentum that we've been able to gain during the pandemic. So we told our community 10 days ago that we were going to be doing an equity crowdfund so that our community could buy shares in Ballad. And so far we have had over £200,000 in soft commitments from our community, and they're very excited about joining us on our journey to not only be the best media platform for Black women, but to create the ultimate lifestyle bundle for Black women globally. So that's Ballad in a nutshell. As for me, I hope it's clear that I'm not a Black woman. So I founded Ballad with my girlfriend, who is now my wife, and I could tell you stories for days about working with your partner. I won't do that here because this is recorded. But my partner, Toby, she was a journalist, or is a journalist by trade, having written at a bunch of different lifestyle publications. As for me, I didn't come from a media background. My first job out of university was as a digital transformation analyst, where I really studied how technology was changing and shaping the world of media. So when I'm not building Ballad, I'm spending far too much time on Twitter. You'll probably find me in NBA Twitter because I love basketball, Black Twitter because I love the culture, or media Twitter because I love what I do. Speaking of which, if you spend any time in media Twitter, you've probably heard a bunch of people say, or read like a bunch of people say, that there is riches in niches, or riches in niches if you're American. And that makes a bunch of sense if you are this solo newsletter writer, Substack and all that sort of stuff. But how does a publishing company, so they're more than one person, go about building an actual business around a niche or a focused audience? We hear, or we traditionally used to hear, so much about the need for scale. Well, actually, niche businesses are not chasing scale, they're chasing something else. And I think this tweet by Jared Dicker gets to the heart of it, or at least part of it. You know, we know that, you know, we are not going to have the biggest audience in the world. We know that we're not going to be Facebook or Google creating one singular product and having an otherworldly revenue stream. But most of us that are building memberships or subscriptions are leaving a lot of money and opportunity on the table by focusing predominantly on our content and not looking at all of the other aspects that we can add to our subscription or membership offerings. And this is something I learned really early on. I talked about the fact that we transitioned from this free blog to this membership platform in 2016, 2017. And one of my jobs was to figure out, well, what is it that this audience would be willing to pay for? And remember, 2016, 17, this is 4 or 5 years ago. This is before, you know, Substacks had taken over the world and people are really used to paying for content online. We spent a bunch of time doing surveys, focus groups, phone calls with Black women to figure out what's missing from their media diet. And the thing that they kept telling us was that it's not just the media, it is the overall community, it's the overall lifestyle. There's so many different aspects to being a Black woman, to being a Black person in Britain, or being a Black person outside of Africa or the Caribbean that they wanted to sort of get into, that was around this, you know, thing we call community. And so, you know, from the very beginning, we've always known that the value for our audience has always been, has always gone sort of beyond the content that we produce. And that's why, you know, it's super important for niche audience or community-focused businesses to create value propositions, not around how many people we can reach, but around creating a depth of relationship with each reader or each customer, and having multiple touch points where we're providing value so that we can get value back. So at Black Ballad, we try to do this by orienting what we do around these 3 core questions. How can we make Black Ballad so good that Black women want to give up their email address? They actually want to pay for Black Ballad experience, whether that's the membership, whether that's an event, whether that's something else. And how can we make Black Ballad so good that Black women want to share it with each other? And I could give you like a whole bunch of theses and things of that nature, but instead I'm going to walk you through a case study that took place over the past year. Over the last, you know, 2 to 3 years, actually, you know, if we take a step back, we know that Black women in Britain have always had an interesting relationship when it comes to their, you know, the NHS, the National Health Service. And when people become a Black Ballad member, they you know, fill in this onboarding form and they tell us things as basic as their age and, you know, where they live, and they tell us things as extreme as how do they want to change the world. And so one of the questions, you know, we ask people is, you know, what would you like to see Black Ballad cover? And for a lot of our audience is, you know, 25 to 45-year-old Black women. A lot of them said, you know, Black motherhood, being a mum in Britain, things of that nature. So we've known for quite a while that, you know, we wanted to tackle Black motherhood or being a parent in Britain. We just didn't quite know how. So over the last few years, you know, we've seen, you know, high-profile stories come out about, you know, Black women having less than ideal experiences whilst giving birth. And this was sort of like coupled with a stat that came out a few years ago, which said that Black women were 5 times more likely to die in childbirth than their white counterparts. And this has gone down to like 4 times more now, but it's still a really harrowing stat. But the thing that it made us ask was, well, that's really terrible, but what else do we not know about Black women and their maternal outcome and their sort of outcomes when they're giving birth and things around that nature? So we decided to do a survey. One second. We decided to do a survey, and we asked a hell of a lot of questions, maybe looking back, you know, a few too many, but we asked a lot of questions. this was around January 2020. To really get to understand from a bunch of different vantage points, what does it mean to be a Black woman in Britain? And luckily we had a really, really strong response. So we had 2,600 Black women engage in the survey. So for context, if you go to YouGov, which is Britain's leading, one of Britain's leading providers for market research and insights data, their entire sample of Black women in Britain is 2,600 people. We got that number to engage and complete and participate in this survey, and they gave us a wide range of data points that we used to turn into a bunch of different experiences for our community. So we naturally created a bunch of articles. The insights that we found, we were able to use those to win a podcast deal with Acast. Huffington Post also caught wind of the survey and the projects that we were doing, and they originally were going to do some kind of event with us, but because of COVID, we turned this into a week-long takeover of the Huffington Post lifestyle and parenting pages. And that particular experience was important because we knew that we were having these conversations within our community and on our platform. But we also, one of the stats that came out through the survey was that 87% of Black women feel that mainstream media and brands misrepresent or do not understand what being a Black mum in Britain is like. And so, it was really important for us to, get these stats on a sort of big stage and a big platform so that we could have the conversation that we've been having internally, but with the broader British community. So that was great. We did that. We were also able to engage with the NHS directly in a bunch of ways. So based on the results from the survey, we were able to win a marketing partnership with NetMums and NHS. And the NHS Digital actually asked us to come and do a round of consulting around Black motherhood and what NHS can and should be doing better, not just from a service standpoint in terms of providing care, but also in terms of how they communicate to Black mums. And all of this stuff, it was those were all really, really great experiences, some for our consumers and some for the people that want to reach, engage and understand them. But it also had a really great, impact on the business as well. So we were able to, based on the content and the experiences that we provided, based on that survey and based on sort of capturing that data, we were able to grow our membership by 13%. 37% of the respondents that were not on our email list joined our email list, and we were able to multiply the money we had spent on the project by 3.4x. So those are all really great things and sort of speak to this idea of when you sort of provide depth around an issue, you provide value for the entire ecosystem as much as yourselves. And so what I talked through quite quickly was in practice the Black Ballad flywheel. And like most media or audience-based businesses, we start off by creating content or creating experiences for the audience, which naturally sort of captures them together, either on a web page, an email list, at an event, etc. We then make sure that we go back and analyze the performance, whether that's looking at all of the different data points that came out in the survey, looking at the conversion rates of our articles, looking at the completion rates of our podcasts, using that feedback and that understanding to go and do it even better next time when we go into create. But on top of that, the insights and the data that we captured was crucial leverage for beginning conversations with some of the brands and the partners that we spoke to, and by partnering with them and then paying to reach, engage and understand Black women, they were able to contribute towards funding additional experiences for our audience as well. So just some high level sort of benefits of optimizing around understanding your audience and building from that standpoint. It provides really unique insights for growth. There are things we know that Black Ballad knows about Black women when it comes to motherhood, parenting, familial attitudes around that, how our extended families get involved, our financial opinions and perspectives around parenthood, how we feel about education. We can use all of that data to fuel content development, audience development, and things of that nature. And for the most part, brands, most mainstream media brands and platforms, even if they wanted to emulate or copy that, it's not something that they could do well. Let's see, should I share this? Should I share this? I'll just say that a mainstream platform attempted to emulate this particular survey, and despite having 50 times the audience that we have, they were only able to get 500 respondents to their survey. So when you have this unique relationship with the audience, you're able to sort of build these data sets that nobody else can capture, and you can build value from that. On top of that, with everything going on with the third-party cookie, third-party data, it's a really strong way of building up your first-party data approach and figuring out how you can sort of merge or integrate, content plus audience plus data. And again, because the data sets and the understanding that you have are, unique to yourselves, it's value adds that you can have with your clients. And I will just speed through these last few slides because of short time. But there's a bunch of different ways that you can build, understanding and data around your audience. And it's not just these, super large scale surveys. As I said, we do this onboarding survey that people do when they become paying members. We also, run polls on our Instagram, on our social feeds to sort of get more light touch data and understanding around our audience too. But it doesn't need to be that sort of sophisticated or granular. Even just observing your audience and, documenting the things that they're talking about. A few years ago, our audience becoming obsessed with the rising price of plantain. So we turned that into a long form investigation on how global warming, gentrification, politics on a global scale was affecting the price of their plantain. And it was at the time the third most successful article in terms of page views, unlocks, and bringing in new memberships. And of course, you can look at your engagement data as well to understand where people are sort of entering in and falling out of your funnel too. So if I was to leave you, or with one sort of like passing note on this, it's that understanding is the fundamental asset for any audience or community. The more understanding you have, the greater your ability to build a business around that community and those that want to reach them. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. I see I had a question, but I see there is one in the chat. So if anyone has other question, do please put it in the chat. Tom says, great presentation. Thank you. As someone with a known media background, what was the thing about starting to work in media that you found most surprising or challenging?
Let's see. So I don't know, I suppose I sort of cheated in a way, in two ways. Like, as I said, in my day job, I spent a ridiculous amount of time studying how media companies were sort of adjusting to, changing face of technology. So I spent a ridiculous amount of time, studying BuzzFeed and saying, yay, BuzzFeed is so great. And then saying, oh no, BuzzFeed's, maybe not so great, and really sort of like getting into the nuances of that. And then, as I said, my partner is a journalist by trade, and so I would hear a lot of her, war stories, and I would get, insight from that standpoint. But to answer the question, the thing that we have found the most surprising and challenging is actually, working with the people that say they want to reach this audience, the advertisers and the brands that want to sort of like engage with this audience. So when we first started speaking to advertisers, in 2016, we were told that we know you have a dedicated audience and it's clearly a passionate audience, but it's just not big enough. And then when we would see the types of brands and the types of media campaigns that, you know, those brands would engage in, you know, it was clear that although they were trying to reach this audience, they weren't doing a really good job of it, either through the brand partnerships that they made or through the creative that they deployed through those campaigns. And so, you know, it was surprising to me that, you know, advertisers and brands always seem to opt for scale rather than, you know, the best impact for, you know, a stated, you know, marketing objective. But yeah, that's just my personal, most surprising thing.
Thank you. Sarah says, that was great and inspiring. Can you talk about the detail of the membership? What's the price point and what do members get? Is there freemium content, event?
Yeah, so there's, I would say there's 3 levels to the membership. The first is, you know, free, you don't have to pay anything. So if you come to Black Ballad, we do make it clear that there's some kind of trade-off that you're making. So to read an article on the platform, you have to give us your email address. And that way you get access to 3 free reads each month, plus you join our weekly newsletter. If you want more than the 3 free reads, then you know, you pay a $4.99 a month or £49 a year for the standard membership. That gives you access to everything, plus discounts to some of the events that we run. And then if you are a premium member, that is $6.99. That is $6.99 a month or £69 a year. And you get all of the above. You get a slightly higher discount to the events that we run, and you get access to our premium Slack channel. So, you know, digital community where this audience can talk about, you know, things on their own terms outside of the glare and watch of, you know, social media and anything else. So, you know, for example, with everything that's gone on with the George Floyd, you know, murder and case, you know, a lot of the premium members have sort of come into the space to just talk about how they're processing the news, or talk about, you know, their experiences, you know, at work as people, you know, ask them questions and things of that nature. And so, you know, that premium Slack channel is really a digital safe space that's been even more valuable, you know, given the pandemic and our inability to meet physically.
David asks, how integral your data analysis to your content, how integral is your data analysis to your content creation, and how involved do your journalists get in the data side of things?
David, that's a really great question. So a bit about how we go about creating content. We only have on staff 2 people responsible for creating content. One is the head of editorial, and one is a junior content creator. Both of them can create text, audio, photography, and video. And then backing them is a pool of 300 plus freelance creatives that write for us, you know, based on the pictures they send in or any specific ideas that we want to create. We don't necessarily, we only go out to, we only specify which pieces we would like, you know, someone from our freelance pool to create when we're working on a specific project. But what our head of editorial does is that she uses the data that we capture either, you know, in the performance of the content or through our onboarding data or, you know, through these like larger editorial surveys. And she uses those as part of her filter in sort of sifting through the different pictures that we get. So, you know, part of it is, you know, editorial eye, and that's not something that I think we'll ever get rid of because data only tells you part of the story. But, you know, the data is really good for, you know, explaining, or at least for, you know, signposting towards, you know, what's working well, what isn't working as well. And, you know, it's really useful for, you know, helping us, you know, suggest different experiment types. So, you know, based on an experiment type, our editor may sort of like only commission or look to commission a particular set or type of articles in a given period of time. On top of that, not just our journalists, but the whole team get weekly, you know, mini data presentations in terms of how the platform's performed. And then every month we have a more a more intricate sort of breakdown from a data standpoint in terms of what, how the platform's doing.
I'll squeeze in one last question for me because I had it from the beginning. Of course, by thinking about added value, by thinking about the relationship, by thinking about the conversation and the community aspect, those are things that require a lot of resources and time. And so how do you think about the balance between growing and scaling to some, like, what does scale mean for you? What does growth mean for you for the future? While all of this, the niche and the value and the loyalty of the community is so crucial for you.
Yeah, I think, for us, our starting point is, creating content and experiences for Black women that they can't get anywhere else, and that, mainstream media can't and wouldn't produce. That, that's our starting point. But in terms of thinking about how this scales, so currently we have, paying members in 10 different countries. And, it's most of our paying members are Black women, but it's not just Black women. So, we have Black men, we have other interested allies that buy into Black Ballad, either through the paid membership or through other ways. It's funny that you say that, it's sort of, relatively resource intensive. Until January, January, we were a 3-person team. So 3 people doing editorial, we weren't really doing a lot of, business development, but certainly doing editorial, doing audience development, working on the data and sort of managing the technology. We've recently jumped to a team of 6. And so, for us, it's it's a challenge. It's part of the reason why we're doing this equity crowdfund, to have more resources so that we can execute against our mission. But for us, we think there is opportunity not just to be the leading provider of lifestyle experiences for Black women in Britain, which is a 2.5 million person market, but certainly like throughout Europe, which is much closer to 15. And we think that whilst there's obvious differences between the Black British experience and the Black European experience, our data suggests, and the anecdotal evidence also suggests, that there's a lot of similarities as well. And so for us, Black Ballad is focused on the sort of experience of the diaspora that doesn't live in Africa or the Caribbean, and figuring out how we define home, how we define what our communities should look like, and how we survive and thrive. Whilst that is niche to some organizations, that's actually a pretty large market and a pretty big undertaking. So it's definitely going to take more than the 6 people that we have on the team, but it's a mission that we're really looking forward to.
Well, that's very impressive, and even more so having started as a team of 3. Thank you very much. We're out of time. I could ask you endless questions, but thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on your project, and good luck. And now over to Sarah.